Okay, so I am back with Sir Isaac Newton's Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy and his System of the World. I mean, to give it its full title, translated into English by Andrew Mott in 1729, the translations revised and supplied with an historical and explanatory appendix by Florian Cajori, or Cajori, or Cajori. This is volume 1, The Motion of Bodies. So we finished definitions last time, and we're on to book 1, The Motion of Bodies. This time around I am going to include, I'll take a picture of the page anytime there's a diagram, and I'll add that to the screen so you can follow the actual diagram without me having to verbally illustrate it very poorly. Okay, so Section 1. Excuse me. Section 1. The method of first and last ratios of quantities, by the help of which we demonstrate the propositions that follow. Lemma 1. Quantities, and the ratios of quantities, which in any finite time converge continually to equality, and before the end of that time approach nearer to each other than by any given difference, become ultimately equal. If you deny it, suppose them to be ultimately unequal, and let D be their ultimate difference. Therefore they cannot approach nearer to equality than by that given difference D, which is contrary to the supposition. Lemma 2. This is where the diagram comes in. If in any figure A, AC, E, well, I should say capital A, lowercase AC, uppercase E, terminated by the right lines capital A, lowercase a, capital E, and the curve lowercase ac, uppercase E, there will be inscribed any number of parallelograms, uppercase A, lowercase b, uppercase B, lowercase c, uppercase C, lowercase d, and C, comprehended under equal bases, capital A, capital B, capital B, capital C, capital D, capital C, capital D, etc. And the sides, upper B, upper C, upper D, lower D, etc. parallel to one side, upper A to lower A, of the figure. And the parallelograms, lower A, upper K, lower BL, lower B, upper L, lower CM, lower C, upper M, lower DN, etc. are completed. Then if the breadth of those parallelograms be supposed to be diminished, and their numbers to be augmented in infinitum, I say that the ultimate ratios, which the inscribed figure upper A, upper K, lower B, upper L, lower C, upper M, lower D, upper D, the circumscribed figure, wow, I mean this is starting to look like gibberish, upper A, lower A, L, B, M, C, N, D, O, upper E, and curvilinear figure, upper A, B, C, D, upper E. So I mean that is just the curved line there. We'll have to one another our ratios of equality. For the difference of the inscribed and circumscribed figures in the sum of the parallelograms, upper K, lower M, L, upper L, lower M, upper M, lower N, upper D, lower O, that is, from the equality of all their bases, the rectangle under one of their bases, upper K, lower B, and the sum of their altitudes, upper A, lower A, that is the rectangle, upper A, upper B, lower L, lower A. But this rectangle, because its breadth, upper A, upper B, is supposed diminished in infinitum, because less than any given space, becomes less than any given space. Sorry, it's a very strange long sentence to read. And therefore, by Lem 1, the figures inscribed and circumscribed become ultimately equal one to the other, and much more will be indeterminate, intermediate, curvilinear figure. Let's try that sentence from the top. And therefore, by Lem 1, the figures inscribed and circumscribed become ultimately equal one to the other, and much more will the intermediate curvilinear figure be ultimately equal to either QED, which is Latin for something with 3 words, each beginning with Q, E, and D. Lemma 2, that was Lemma 2. Lemma 3 will be a new illustration. There it is. Lemma 3. The same ultimate ratios are also ratios of equality when the breadths upper A, upper B, upper B, upper C, upper D, upper C, etc. of the parallelograms are unequal and are all diminished in infinitum. For suppose upper A, upper F equals to the greatest breadth, and complete the parallelogram upper F, upper A, lower F. This parallelogram will be greater than the difference of the inscribed and circumscribed figures, but because its breadth upper A, upper F is diminished in infinitum, it will become less than any given rectangle, QED. COR1, I presume that means corollary. 1. Hence the ultimate sum of those evanescent parallelograms will in all parts coincide with the curvilinear figure. Call 2. Much more will the rectilinear figure comprehended under the chords of the evanescent arcs lower AB, lower BC, lower CD, etc. ultimately coincide with the curvilinear figure. Call 3. And also the circumscribed rectilinear figure comprehended under the tangents of the same arc. Core 4. And therefore these ultimate figures, as to their perimeters, lower AC, upper E, are not rectilinear but curvilinear limits of rectilinear features. Lemma 4. We will have another new diagram. If in two figures, upper A, lower AC, upper E, upper P, lower PR, upper T, there are inscribed, as before, 2 series of parallelograms, an equal number in each series, and their breadths being diminished in infinitum, if the ultimate ratios of the parallelograms in one figure to those in the other, each to each respectively, are the same, I say that those 2 figures, upper A, lower AC, upper E, upper P, lower PR, upper T, are to each other in that same ratio. For as the parallelograms in the one are severally to the parallelograms in the other, so, by composition, is the sum of all in this one to the sum of all in the other, and so is the one figure to the other, become, by Lem 3, the former figure to the former sum, and latter figure to the latter sum, are both in the ratio of equality, Q, E, D. Corollary. Hence, if 2 quantities of any kind are divided in any manner into an equal number of parts, and those parts, when their number is augmented and their magnitude diminished in infinitum, have a given ratio to each other, the first to the first, the second to the second, and so on in order, all of them taken together will be to each other in that same given ratio. For if, in the figures of this lemma, the parallelograms are taken to each other in the ratio of the parts, the sums of the parts will ultimately be as the sum of the parallelograms, and therefore, supposing the number of the parallelograms in parts to be augmented and their magnitudes diminished in infinitum, those sums will be in the ultimate ratio of the parallelogram in the one figure to the corresponding parallelogram in the other, that is, by the supposition, in the ultimate ratio of any part of one quantity to the correspondent part of the other. Lemma 5. All homologous sides of similar figures, whether curvilinear or rectilinear, are proportional, and the areas are as the squares of the homologous sides. Lemma 6. If any arc upper ACB given in position is subtended by its chord upper AB, and in any point A, in the middle of the continued curvature, is touched by a right line, upper AD, produced both ways. Then if the points upper A and upper B approach one another and meet, I say the angle upper BAD, contained between the chords and the tangent, will be diminished in infinitum, and ultimately will vanish. For if that angle does not vanish, the arc upper ACB will continue with the tangent upper A, upper D, an angle equal to a rectilinear angle, and therefore the curvature at the point upper A will not be continued, which is against the supposition. Lemma 7. Okay, Lemma 7 appears to still refer to the same diagram on that page, but will change. Okay, to a different one later. Anyway, so we'll stick with that diagram. Lemma 7. The same things being supposed, I say that the ultimate ratio of the arc, chord, and tangent, any one to any other, is the ratio of equality. For while the point upper B approaches towards the point upper A, consider always upper AB and upper AD as produced to the remote points lower B and lower D, and parallel to the secant upper BD, draw lower BD, and let the arc upper A, lower CB be always similar to the arc upper ACB. Then, supposing the points upper A and upper B to coincide, the angles lower D, upper A, lower B will vanish by the preceding lemma, and therefore the right lines upper A, lower B, upper A, lower D, which are always finite, and the intermediate arc upper A, lower CB will coincide and become equal among themselves. Wherefore the right lines upper AB, upper AD, and the intermediate arc upper ACB, which are always proportional to the former, will vanish and ultimately acquire the ratio of equality, Q, E, D. Okay, we're switching over to the other page of diagrams. Corollary 1. Whence, if through B we draw BF parallel to the tangent, always cutting any right line AF passing through A in F, this line BF will be ultimately in the ratio of equality with the evanescent arc ACB. Because completing the parallelogram AFBD, it is always in a ratio of equality with AD. Corollary 2. And if through B and A more right lines are drawn as BE, BD, AF, AG, cutting the tangent AD, and its parallel BF, the ultimate ratio of all the abiscuses, AD, AE, BF, BG, and of the chord and arc AB, any one to any other, will be the ratio of equality. Corollary 3. And therefore, in all our reasoning about ultimate ratios, we may freely use any one of those lines for any other. Okay, Lemma 8. We have the diagram in the lower part of the page. If the right lines upper A, upper R, upper B, upper R, with the arc upper A, C, B, the chord upper A, upper B, and the tangent upper A, upper D, constitute three triangles: upper RAB, upper RACB, upper RAD, and the points A and B approach and meet. I say that the ultimate form of these evanescent triangles is that of similitude, and their ultimate ratio that of equality. For while the point B approaches towards the point A, consider always upper AB, upper AD, upper AR as produced to the remote points lower B, D, and R, and lower RBD as drawn parallel to upper RD. And let the arc upper A, lower CB be always similar to the arc upper ACB. Then supposing the points upper A and B to coincide, the angle lower B, upper A, lower D will vanish, and therefore the three triangles lower R, upper A, lower B, lower R, upper A, CB, lower R, upper A, lower D, which are always finite, will coincide, and on that account become both similar and equal. And therefore the triangles upper RAB, upper RACB, upper RAD, which are always similar and proportional to these, will ultimately become both similar and equal among themselves. Q, E, D. Corollary. And hence in all reasoning about ultimate ratios, we may use any one of these triangles for any other. Diagram there. Lemma 9. If a right line upper A, upper E, and a curved line upper ABC, both given by position, cut each other in a given angle upper A, to that right line in another given angle, upper BD, upper CE, are ultimately applied, meeting the curve in upper B, upper C, and the points upper B and upper C together approach towards and meet in the points upper A. Sorry, it looked like another letter there, but it's the word I at the beginning of the next sentence. I'll prove it. I say that the areas of the triangles upper ABD, upper ACE will ultimately be to each other as the squares of the homologous sides. For while the points upper B, upper C approach towards the point upper A, suppose always upper AD to be produced to the remote points lower D and lower E, so as upper A, lower D, upper A, lower E may be proportional to upper AD, upper AE, and the ordinates lower DB, lower EC to be drawn parallel to the ordinates upper DB and upper EC, and meeting upper AB and upper AC produced in lower B and lower C. Let the curve upper A, lower BC be similar to the curve upper ABC, and draw the right line upper A, lower G so as to touch both curves in A. And cut the ordinates upper DB, upper EC, lower DB, lower EC in upper F, upper G, lower F, lower G. Then supposing the length upper A, lower E to remain the same, let the points upper B and upper C meet in the point upper A, and the angle lower C, upper A, lower G vanishing. The curvilinear areas upper A, lower BD, upper A, lower CE will coincide with the rectilinear areas upper A, lower FD, upper A, lower GE, and therefore, by Lem 5, will be one to the others in the duplicate ratio of the sides upper A, lower D, upper A, lower E. But the areas upper ABD and upper ACE are always proportional to those areas, and so the sides upper AD, upper AE are to these sides, and therefore the areas upper ABD, upper ACE are ultimately to each other as the squares of the sides upper AD, upper AE, Q, ED. Lemma 10, still referring to the same diagram. The spaces which a body describes by any finite force urging it, whether that force is determined and immutable, or is continually augmented or continually diminished, not diminished, are in the very beginning of the motion to each other as the squares of the time. Let the times be represented by the lines upper A, upper D, upper A, upper E, and the velocities generated in those times by the ordinates upper D, upper B, I don't think that would matter, upper E, upper C. The space described with these velocities will be as the areas upper ABD, upper ACE, described by those ordinates, that is, at the very beginning of the motion, by Lem 9, in the duplicate ratio of the times upper AD, upper AE, QED. Corollary 1. And hence one may easily infer that the errors of bodies describing similar parts of similar figures in proportional times, the errors being generated by any equal force similarly applied to the bodies, and measured by the distance of the bodies by those places of the similar figures, at which, without the action of these forces, the bodies would have arrived in their proportional times, are nearly as the squares of the times in which they are generated. Corollary 2. But the errors that are generated by proportional forces, similarly applied to the bodies at similar parts of the similar figures, are as the product of the forces and the square. I do apologise. Corollary 2. But the errors that are generated by proportional forces, similarly applied to the bodies at similar parts of the similar figures, are as the product of the forces and the squares of the times. I do apologise for pressing that. Corollary 3. The same thing is to be understood of any spaces whatsoever described by bodies urged with the different forces, all of which, in the very beginning of the motion, are as the product of the forces and the square of the times. Corollary 4. And therefore the forces are directly as the spaces described in the very beginning of the motion, and inversely as the squares of the times. Corollary 5. And the squares of the times are directly as the spaces described, and inversely as the forces. I shall leave it there for now, and be back with the Scholium on page 35.